So I think my favorite question was which chapter has the most potential application to our work in this course. And for me, it was the chapter that was called Is It a Symbol? Because it has some of my favorite quotes in it. And I liked how it was open to interpretation. One of the quotes says, "Seriously, what do you think the symbol stands for? Because that's probably what it does, at least for you." And then another quote that was in that chapter also said, "Pay attention to what you feel about the text because it probably means something." And I thought that was awesome because it allows us as readers to develop our own opinion of the text. But then at the same time, I thought chapter 25 was important because the two chapters were kind of connected, as you have to read with your own eyes, but you also have to be open to other perspectives.
With that being said, I would say that I thought the most important chapter was the last chapter, and it's Is He Serious? And it basically states that irony triumphs over everything, and that irony is so crucial in writing and in literature, because if you can't comprehend that the author is using irony, then it's going to throw off the entire concept. But if you're not, it's going to mislead you. It's going to be a challenging read. So you have to really pick up on when the author is being ironic in order to understand the deeper meaning and messages.
Right, and then irony really connects to the question on why are seasons so complicated, because I mean, as Chelsea said, they do have universal meaning, like spring, rebirth, and winter is death. But then again, since they're so like grounded in like our culture and like it's just kind of common knowledge, that like seasons can be used like ironically to, and they have strong effects that way too. And then also, what Foster says in that chapter is interesting about how Christians celebrate the birth of Christ in the winter. So it's kind of like a reversal, like the most like the happiest holiday is in the middle of like what would we consider like death, like the season of death. So.
Like Leah, I also said that Is That a Symbol? That chapter is most important because it mostly relates to this class. And I think that the nature question about its complexity actually relates back to that, because like with symbols, the authors purposefully do what they do to articulate a deeper meaning for everything. And nature is like again selected and placed differently in literature, such as in Angela's Ashes, where it's always raining and everyone's dying and getting sick. So the complexity of nature has a lot to do with the author's purpose for a symbol and how they can mean pretty much anything based on where they are located in the text.
I agree. I also chose Is That a Symbol as one of the most important chapters, and I like this chapter because it really urges the reader to be confident in their own thoughts and believe that if they think that it's a symbol and they can find evidence to back it up, then more than likely it is a symbol. And I have a quote from page 97, and it says, "Here's the problem with symbols. People expect them to mean something, not just any something, but one something in particular." And so there's really no true answer to what a symbol means. It's how you interpret that, and I think having confidence in your own thoughts is really important in this class.
I liked the one story chapter and the symbolism chapter, and I liked they were kind of contradictory to me. The symbolism chapter was saying like interpret it in your own way, which I liked a lot because I'm not very good at picking up well, I don't think I am, but because I don't have like the confidence in myself. But it is like how you interpret it, which is what I liked about that chapter. But then the one story chapter, not the one story chapter, the read from a different person's different perspective was the first chapter was saying like do your interpretation, and then the other chapter was saying read it from another, like the author's perspective. So I liked them both, but they were kind of contradictory.
I think that's what makes literature awesome, though, that you can have all these different perspectives. Like, I think that's what makes us like mature readers, that we are able to develop our own opinions, but then at the same time we're also able to like look through different perspectives. Like, I read the things they carried, and like obviously I've never been to war or anything close to that, but like it really opens your eyes as like how the timeless war is, and like how guilt is also like a timeless thing. And there's a quote on page 267. There are no answers, just shared perceptions of reality. And I thought that was awesome because it kind of brings everything together, as yes, you do need to read like with your own eyes, but also with other perspectives as well.
And I agree with that, but I would also like to say that it's very important to read with your own eyes, I believe, too, because you want to be able to, it goes back to the originality of your own thoughts, and you don't want to be persuaded exactly as the author wants you to, because no matter what, there's going to be subliminal messages in any literature, because the author has their own opinion, and when they write it with usually their own eyes and their own opinions. So it's really easily for people to be persuaded one way or another in art, and that's in all art. And an example I had was actually in Gulliver's Travel, when Gulliver ends up in a land of the giants, Brad, David, Nag, and so the king, he actually calls him Otis Vermin, as in Europeans in Part 2, Chapter 6, because of their ways of life, and understand where he's coming from. The king, his people live in such a simplistic society that they don't have the same, they're more ignorant, and they don't have the same lifestyle. So to call the Europeans or even Western ways of life Otis Vermin, that's like pretty effective on a reader, especially at a younger age. You want to be able to create your own opinions, and you have to understand where we come from and our history and how history repeats itself, and everything has an effect. So, I mean, going forward, I think that we can learn from our mistakes, but we also have to understand that we live in a great society, and not to be easily persuaded by an author's opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think it's very important to read with the eyes of the person who's telling the story, not just historically, but also culturally. I'm going to quote Mr. Servideo. He always said, "You're a product